Hello, Raphael. How are you today?
I am doing great, Yvonne. How about you? How are things in your neck of the woods?
Things are awesome. I'm so excited for our guest today. Hello, Greg Hamlin.
Hello, how are you guys?
We are great, and we're so happy we can hear you and see you.
I'm glad I can hear you too. You'd think as a podcaster I'd have this thing figured out, but it's been a day, right?
Well, as we all know, every platform's a little bit different, and sometimes they don't like to work the way we want them to.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for making time for us. We're excited. So let's dive in, shall we?
Absolutely.
Let's start off by, for folks that might not know you, Greg, explain what your role is in the workers' compensation ecosystem.
Absolutely. So I am the Chief Claims Officer for WR Berkley, and it's an operating unit called Berkley Industrial Comp. And so we are a monoline work comp carrier that only focuses on high hazard workers' compensation insurance. So think highly compensated employees that are doing dangerous work. And we do that across the country, whether that's steel erection, explosives, road construction, cell phone tower work, bridge painting, all the kinds of things that a lot of carriers are afraid to write. We specialize in it. And so our everyday is difficult claims. We don't see a lot of frequency because most of these guys get paid a lot of money and they want to be at work. We don't see a lot of fraud either. But what we do see is some really challenging claims. And so that's what we do. I started about 20 years ago in the industry, a little more than that, and have had the opportunity to do a lot of different things in the workers' comp space that really prepared me for where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think that's a new term. I don't think we've discussed monoline insurance yet on this podcast.
Okay. Well, that's fun stuff. So
a new term.
Yeah, for folks who don't know, so what that means is we only write workers' compensation. So if you went to a carrier and they offered you a package where you would have your auto, your GL, and your workers' comp, we don't do that. So a lot of the insureds we write, they may have trouble getting workers' comp, but they don't have trouble getting auto and GL. But because they're doing these dangerous jobs, that other line can be hard. So we'll step in and fill that gap for some of these employers that really have trouble finding coverage.
I love it. Thank you for explaining that. That's awesome. And I also love the topic that you said you wanted to talk about today. I cannot wait to dive in. So we're going to talk about the role of empathy in workers' compensation. You have no idea how happy that makes me. So let's start off by talking about, why do you see that as an important topic to discuss in our workers' comp system? Just tell us why that's important to you.
So I think when I started in claims 20 years ago, the one thing I really wanted to do was make a difference. I had done non-for-profit fundraising for Indiana University. I loved that. I loved raising scholarships for students so they could further their education. I felt like I was making a difference every day. But my wife and I got married in college and had our first daughter, first kid, while we were still students, and she was pregnant with my second while she was student teaching, and we have 6. And I remember back at that time, I asked the foundation, like, what would be the next steps for me to develop my career here? And they said, you've already got a kid. How many of these do you want? And I said, my wife says 10. I said 3 to 5. And we ended up at 6, so I lost that. But he said, you really should take these skills and go into business. And so I didn't really want to leave the foundation, but I went to a career fair, met a Fortune 100 carrier, started in workers' comp, not knowing anything about it, really looking for an opportunity to take care of my family. And I missed that other side that I got to do in non-for-profit fundraising, where I really felt like I was making an impact. And I think 20 years ago, in particular, that's not how the industry was designed. And I think we are seeing a shift in that. And I'm actually really excited to be in a role where I can be part of that change, because we really do a noble thing in helping people put their lives back together after something really difficult happened. And we're there to help them do the work that they want to do and recover and get the right treatment and make sure that we put back the pieces of their life. So I'm excited for this topic because I feel like this is a direction the industry needs to keep working at. And it's my why.
I love that. So
Me
okay,
too.
we are going to talk about workers' compensation, but I just got to stop and say for a second, God bless you and your wife having 6 kids. Ralph, can you imagine having 6 children?
I can't.
It is a special kind of crazy. My oldest is on the verge of getting married. She's in college, so she's kind of doing what we did. I've got one that's on a mission speaking Spanish, working with immigrants, and then another that's a senior in high school, all the way down to 4 years old. So just did the 4-year-old birthday this weekend, and so it's a wild ride. I've got like every stage of parenting you can imagine.
Holy cow. Well, again, thank you so much for taking time for us and talking with us today and sharing about that. I have I've known that about you for a while, and I always marvel at all the things that I see you doing, and I just shake my head because Raphael and I know, like, we're constantly asking each other, how do we, where's the go button on this podcast darn thing here?
Yeah, you just gotta, I feel like, I just stay busy all the time. There's no stopping me. And at a certain point, you just get used to being that busy. So I don't know. I assume I'll have a mess of grandkids. So there'll be something to keep me busy when I get a little older.
Well,
I
expect you will. Yeah. Awesome. Well, and that'll definitely keep you going and keep you young for sure. So
Absolutely.
So empathy, how does empathy show up in your world?
So I'd been thinking about it my entire career about what needed to change. And I'd heard different people come up with different concepts or ideas. But during COVID, the one really great thing about COVID is I had a lot of time. I don't know if everybody remembers that time, but we did a lot of walking because there wasn't anything else to do. So my wife and I would go on walks, and we would talk a lot about, like, well, what might change or what could we do different? And I think a lot of other carriers were really struggling with COVID-19 and how to handle all those. We didn't really have any because our construction workers, we might work in a crane and a cab by themselves. And so we weren't struggling with that problem when the rest of the industry, I think, was, which really gave me time to think. And so what I started thinking about is the fact that I really believe that a lot of the litigation that happens comes from a lack of understanding by everybody involved of what the process is and how could we reshape that. Because if you believe that my desire was for you to get the best possible outcome and we were in sync together, then yes, there's all these laws and rules that are set there to tell us what we need to do. But the reality is there's nothing in those laws that say we can't do more. And if doing more helps us get to the best outcome from everybody involved, why wouldn't we do it? And so that was where we started probably 6 years ago. And it's really evolved over the last 6 years as we think about outcomes versus just cost by itself.
I love that. So in your role at Berkley, talk to us about how you are weaving in empathy with your claims team. So you are Chief Claims Officer. How does that happen, with your professionals that are on your team?
Absolutely. So I think it starts with empowerment. I believe very, very strongly in empowerment of my adjusters so that they can come up with solutions to impact their claims. So if you tie things down so tight that you're building it not to fail, then you're taking away people's autonomy, which is what brings people joy in their jobs. Nobody wants to work in a job where you feel like I'm following step A, B, C, D, E, and I can't do anything outside the box. And so step one, I think, for us was to recognize that and embrace that. And then rather than me come with a whole bunch of solutions of this is what this idea is going to look like, I just threw the idea out there and I said, help me build this. You guys are in the trenches every day. What would it look like? What would be different about it? And then let's create little experiments around each of these ideas. And then let's see how they work. And if they don't work, let's be willing to move on to the next idea. And so what we did is we really embraced the entire claims team, managers down to brand new adjusters, to think about how we could do it different. And then we kept adding and adding. So One of the ideas early on was, what if we sent flowers after an injury? And we were thinking about how we would do that. And one of the adjusters said, like most of our guys are construction workers. They're kind of blue collar workers. This might be kind of weird. And I was like, okay, I could see that. So then it was like, well, what else could we do? And somebody, like, I think we had an employee appreciation day in the company where the company sent everybody cookies to their house during COVID, which was super nice. And the adjuster was like, what if we did that? Like, what if we just did that for our injured workers when they had a surgery or went through, some milestone in their claim? And so we figured out how to make that work. It was a little tricky at first. The vendor didn't want to have an account with us. They wanted to bill us every single, like pay with a credit card every time. I'm like, this is not going to be scalable. And so we had to like work through and explain, well, we're a Fortune 500 company. If you bill us, we're just going to pay directly from our CFO from the claim level. Once they realized all that, we were able to solve it. But little ideas like that, and then we iterate. And I think we've come a long way over the last 6 years rethinking how that looks like.
Such a small thing, but Raphael and I talk about this quite often, that you really can. We hear over and over again, most claims that break down and go into litigation, usually you can trace it back to one breakdown of communication where the injured worker feels that they're not being heard, seen, cared for. So really amazing. Kudos.
And I'd add to that, I think we have to own it when we make mistakes, because we do make mistakes. And I think that's another thing that comes with accountability and empowerment, is giving your people the ability to do that. So we had another example I'll give, an adjuster who, this injured worker had been crushed in a limestone mine. And so he had very significant leg injuries that were going to require a number of different surgeries. There was no question about the injury or it being work related. We were taking care of him. And something happened where the check didn't release in our system, but it showed that it released. So when he called, we were like, yeah, your check should be there in a day or two, because we could see that it printed, but something failed behind the scenes and it didn't print. And so the next week came and he's like, I still don't have my check. We're like, that's really funny. It should be there by now. And we started background checking the system and found out there had been a glitch and a number of people didn't get their checks. And as we started talking, and as we started talking to him about it, he said, here's the thing. I've got a son. My wife or my girlfriend quit her job to take care of me. And I don't have any food in the house. And I had my son spend the weekend at his friend's house because we don't have any food here. And now it's Monday and you're telling me I still don't have a check and I still am not going to have any food. And the adjuster called me and he said, I don't want to get an attorney and I don't want to sue you, but like, we have to be able to take care of ourselves. And the adjuster called me and said, Greg, I know we don't do this, but can we put together a click list for this guy? This was our mistake. Let's set up a couple $100 worth of groceries for him to pick up at the grocery store. And she's like, I don't even know how to expense that. And I said, we'll figure it out. We've got corporate cards. This is outside the box, but we made a mistake. Let's own it. Let's make it right. And let's get him his check. And overnighting it doesn't solve the problem for today. So let's solve today's problem and do the right thing. And what's great is that when we do those kinds of things, think about the trust that builds with the injured worker. When we get to the point that we do need to have a settlement, everybody is working together instead of fighting each other because we've done the right thing and we've admitted when we've made mistakes. And I think there's a right fighting mentality in the industry that ultimately ends up costing more than if we just admitted when we make mistakes happen. We weren't trying to delay his check, but it happened.
Right. It sounds so simple. I wish we could see and hear more of these stories. Ralph, I'm going to turn it over to you to let you ask a couple of questions.
I just love that, Greg. I can't absorb it enough, right? Because it is so basic. How do you win trust? You win trust by making sure you're doing right. And you're telling folks, I'm trying my very best to do right. And yeah, who doesn't make mistakes? We all do. But saying my fault and I'm going to make it right. I'm going to make it better. So man, what an incredible process you're creating over there. That's why you're the leader in this area of our comp industry, because I can see that doing that, wow, right? Don't we all wish that the entire comp industry, was behaving in this manner, in this way, in every single claim? Just love it, man.
Well,
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Well, and I'd say, Raphael, the other thing is people worry, well, if we did all those things, we're going to lose money. And the reality is, and I'm not going to reveal our ROE, but it's dang good. And we have the best employees wanting to come work for us. I've got a waiting list of amazing people who want to work for us because they want to have 80 claims and feel empowered and be able to make decisions at their desk. And newsflash, those people actually make really positive impacts to claims. We empower them.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I want to fact check. Did you say 80 claims?
80 claims. My adjusters, my lost, and they have a mix of medical and lost time. Our average caseload is between 70 and 90 claims. And it's because I don't plan to keep these claims forever. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to get the person back to work. We're going to find a solution to help them move on with their lives. Because the reality is neither of us want to be in each other's lives for the next 30 years. So let's do the right thing up front and give people the time to build those relationships and make the right decisions. And my bet is in doing that, we'll be more profitable. And we have been. So I think the proof's in the results, and I'm proud of what we're doing.
You should be.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Darn proud.
Well, and we haven't had a single adjuster leave in 18 months. So people don't leave, and if you don't have to spend that energy training new people and transferring files and having all the mistakes that go with that, that really leads to consistency, and consistency really leads to results. So it's pretty cool.
Greg, I'm assuming, right, that these are heavy-duty, catastrophic type injuries because of the type of work they're doing. So we're not talking about sprains and strains here.
No.
So
no, these are not slip and falls. These are crush injuries and fall injuries, and sometimes paralysis. Sometimes we have a catastrophic unit that we created that has a small team on it, and they handle claims. They probably have 30 to 40 claims is all, because one claim could be their entire week, and so they need to be focused on that. And again, to me, it's the outcome that really we're striving for. So I'll give one other brief example. We had an injured worker in Illinois who lost his arm in a workplace accident. And if you've done workers' comp in Illinois, it's a pretty challenging state to be a carrier. You can't write the doctor. They have basically total control, but also maybe don't know what's best either for them. So in a situation like that, the relationship's even more important. And we had an injured worker who really wanted to get back to be a heavy equipment operator. And they gave him a prosthesis that we approved. He went through at the provider he chose and they gave him basically a catalog and said, pick your arm out. And he didn't know what to do. So he picked what looked like the coolest arm that he could find. And they put it together, and it cost, I want to say $30,000 or $40,000. And then he couldn't use it. He didn't know how to use it, and he couldn't make it work. And so the adjuster said, look, we've got a friend of ours in Atlanta who's also a amputee, and he's created this company to work with people to solve this. You get to choose where you want to go, but would you be open to a call with this guy and just a video call to see if he could make an impact? And they agreed hesitantly. And then after meeting him, they said, well, if we want to go there, you're going to fly us down there? And we said, yeah. And they said, well, would you pay for my spouse to go? And I said, absolutely. You guys should be in this together. So they agreed, flew to Atlanta, spent a week with him. Within 1 week, they crafted an arm, took him to a yard where he could work on heavy equipment, trained him how to use that arm. And they were texting each other best of buddies even after the accident, and sent us pictures of him back at work driving his vehicle, which is like that should be the goal. But a lot of that has gotten lost, I think, in the industry. And could we force him to do all those things? No. But I think gaining cooperation and recognizing we're on a team together to try to help you. And not everybody's going to believe that. Not everybody's going to get on board. But the ones that do, we can really make a huge impact if we think outside the box.
Greg, I'm emotional about it because it's, you said it. That's exactly what the goal is, right? That's exactly what the dream is. That's exactly why all of us are engaged in this industry, is to get to cases and examples and returning folks to their lives exactly as you've indicated. Man, incredible. It really is.
And that arm costs $5,000 less.
Right.
So we didn't make the decision because it costs less. What we did is we made the decision around how can we improve this person's life to get back to work. And ultimately, when you do everything right and it all lines up, the outcome is what you're aiming for, which so many times is less expensive than the right fighting along the way. If we had just denied that arm and fought about $30,000, think of where that claim would be. There'd be no trust at all.
Yeah. Yeah. People dig in, you've got a permanent total disability claim before you, hundreds of thousands of dollars later. Yvonne says it all the time, right? It's
Absolutely.
Doing that right thing. Ultimately, it's the best because you're going to spend less and that claimant gets his life back, which is really the most significant and most important part of this entire process. Yeah.
Well, I have to make a correction because thank you for saying that I say it all the time. But what I do is I refer to our friend Bill Zachary. I know that you know him,
Love
Greg.
Bill's a good friend of mine as well.
His statement that he always says, and I repeat it as often as I can, is do the right thing and everybody wins.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, people want to do the right thing. So when you empower your employees to do that, they're going to hang around too. So you're getting the benefit of that. And you don't realize how many resources you're spending attracting, developing, training new talent in an industry where nobody's equipped out of college with all the things they need to learn. So if you're going to invest in people, you want to keep those people. And I've seen it across many different companies, ones I've worked for and ones that I know people in who just have that churn, that adjuster churn and burn.
So, Greg, I mean, we could talk to you all day about this topic. We're hearing what we want to hear, and we wish we could just spread it around the industry and that everybody could do it this way, but we know that that's not possible or practical. So what I'd like to ask you next is, for folks that might be claims professionals working at a larger organization where they don't feel empowered necessarily, like you're talking about that you provide for your professionals, what suggestions might you have for those professionals to be able to do the best that they can at their disposal?
I think the first thing is challenge the status quo. I mean, obviously, don't go rogue, don't break your company's rules, but I would say throw some of these ideas out there to your manager. If you feel like you can make an impact doing something, then suggest it and at least try and see where it might go. I think that's the first step is really challenging it. I've spent a lot of time over the last 20 years thinking about what motivates people and what makes people happy and what brings results. But a lot of companies are really set up to avoid failure instead of to focus on success. And when you're running a really large organization, you're going to do a lot of audits. You use a lot of reports because you can't have eyes on everybody and you really can't know everybody. And so there are some challenges that just come with that territory that we have to be honest about. But I think if you're in those seats, then suggest change and see what happens.
That's a really great point. The other thing I want to ask you is, I've been talking about this a lot lately, and I will continue to talk about this for the foreseeable future. But we're at another, what I call an inflection point. COVID was definitely one where, Raphael and I talk a lot about how since COVID, we've seen the rise of talking about mental health in conjunction with our workers' compensation claims, which it was just really kind of taboo before, right? So that's become more mainstream. The other thing is, you mentioned that your claims professionals have a very, much more manageable load than what we hear about that is average in the industry. For those folks that have more, I always worry about what's happening to claims professionals who are so maxed out, they're not able to take care of themselves. What can we possibly expect them in terms of being able to be empathetic or compassionate towards the injured workers that they're interacting with? How can we do better at that as an industry? What are your suggestions there?
So I think, again, so much of the time we get caught up on how many claims can we put through X amount of people to get the best, or to get the lowest cost per claim. And I think we're missing the boat if we do that, because the outcomes is, especially where medical costs what it costs today, the outcomes, maybe not for med only, but for all of the lost time claims, the outcomes are going to drive the costs. And we know that an injured worker who's off work more than 6 weeks is likely not going back to work. So if we put the resources on the front end of that claim to keep that object in motion, keep that injured worker in motion, we're going to get a better outcome. So I think it's just changing the paradigm. It's scary to try something different. I think about it like taxis. Everybody was used to taxis. I'm sure the people who innovated and tried to Uber out were scared, were took a lot of chances. And look where we are today. So I think with any kind of, if you're willing to take some risks, calculated risks, start small, experiment, and then build off those experiments. And I think even larger companies can do that. They just have to be very deliberate about what they're doing.
Really good. So Ralph, it's time for us to wrap it up. What would your final question be for Greg here?
Oh my gosh, Greg, I've got a page and a half of notes because I just marvel, I really do, at what you're doing and your commitment to it, right? And your words are so resounding to me. Don't be afraid, right, to explore. Don't be afraid to go there. Don't be afraid to look at it in a different way. Ask and then allow yourself, right? Because I think at the end of the day, you may have discovered the formula that really does work, right? That focus, that energy upfront. I think if folks were just daring enough to try that, they would figure out, that it's good for the individual, good for the company, good for the bottom line. It's a good all the way around. Okay, I'm going to stop because she's going to click off on me here pretty soon. I want to know about. I think you've said to us, or I think I've read 900 board games. I want to know more about that. I cannot wait to hear about that.
So I have a broad range of interests. I'm kind of an odd duck in that, and I love following my college sports teams. I have my pro teams I love all those things. But God did not bless me with a super athletic body. I got a keen brain, and I didn't get the other assets, even though I enjoyed following those things. Growing up, my dad would spend hours with me in the basement playing strategic board games that would go on for hours and hours. I think I started when I was probably 6 or 7, and that's something that I still enjoy doing today, and it's something that I enjoy doing with my kids. I feel like I never let them win, so if they beat me, they got me. And there's a lot, and then we'll do cooperative ones too, where it's us against the game. That way, we're not always beating up on each other. But I love thinking about problems and playing it out. And I've done since I was a kid, so it's crazy. My wife says I have to play every game if I'm going to keep it, and we're not quite there yet. So I'm probably still in the doghouse. Retirement's gonna be fun though.
So what are some of your favorites?
That's a great question. So like I said, I'm a huge nerd, so you have to be really deep down the rabbit hole to know all these titles. But I love good European games that are strategic and take a few hours. I also like heavy theme games. There's a great game if you love Star Wars called Star Wars Rebellion, where it takes like 3 hours and you're really playing the first movie of Star Wars all the way out, hiding your rebel base, and the other person's trying to find it while everything else is going on in the movie. So, I'm a huge nerd. If there's spaceships, swords, sci-fi, fantasy, I'm all in.
How about this one?
I love Catan. Absolutely. I've got Game of Thrones Catan in my collection, so it's there. It's there.
I knew about Rebellion because my boys just love Star Wars, so they played it. I'm not a board game guy.
It's massive. Yeah, this is not one that's just like a deck of cards. This has got all kinds of stuff going on. So if you ever want to nerd out with me at a convention or something like that, find me and I'm in.
Let's absolutely do that. I think we need to make a date. We need to schedule it. So I think we need to make a date, and let's plan to do that at the next time. Like we'll be in touch. We'll figure out where the next place is we're going to see you.
That sounds great. That sounds great. I will for sure be at WCI this year, so you can count on me there.
WCI game night. Sounds like fun.
That's it.
Greg,
That'd be great.
Greg,
are you still on cloud nine about University of Indiana
Oh,
winning
right.
the
I'm happy
national
for it. Could be the next 50 years, and I'm gonna be happy, Raphael. That was my bingo card.
well, listen, we'll let you go. This has been so incredible. So we look forward to seeing you real soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Thank
hasta
you, Greg.
luego.
Hasta luego.